This is the Honourable Member's inaugural speech. I give the call to the Honourable Klara Andric.
Thank you, President. May I congratulate you on your appointment as President of the Legislative Council. During your inaugural speech to this House in 2013, you spoke of the values of honesty, integrity and fairness, and how they guide you and define you. As someone who has looked up to you as a role model for many years, I have no doubt that your leadership of this House will be defined by those same values. May I begin by saying, Nagala Kadic, Nunga Mort, Kayan Kadak, Nija Buja. Please excuse my pronunciation. I want to begin my address by acknowledging the first and continuing custodians of this land on which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the first Aboriginal person to be elected to this House, the Member for the Mining and Pastoral Region, the Honourable Rosie Sahana. It is a historic occasion, one that fills me with pride to be alongside you in this House. I'd like to congratulate Premier Mark McGowan on his re-election. His determination during the election and his excellent leadership led our party to a truly historic victory. I would also like to congratulate my colleagues in both houses, those re-elected and newly elected members of Parliament alike. Firstly, let me begin by thanking the people of the South Metropolitan Region. I am incredibly honoured to have been elected to represent them in this place. I am proud to stand in this chamber today as the first Serbian-born person elected to the Parliament of Western Australia and the first Serbian-born woman to be elected to a parliament in Australia. My journey to this place began in May 1986, when two brave migrants took a leap of faith and began their voyage to Perth, Western Australia. With nothing more than 2 suitcases and a dream of a better life, they embarked on a journey to the other side of the world in search of opportunities and a brighter future for their children. My parents, Klara and Istvan Marton, who are here today, could never have imagined that one day I would have the opportunity to be elected by the people of Western Australia as a member of the Legislative Council. I am incredibly honoured to be standing here as a proud representative of a party with a strong tradition of supporting the most vulnerable in our community and making dreams like this one here today a reality for working-class families just like mine. I was born in Novi Sad, Serbia in 1981, a city located in the autonomous region of Vojvodina, in what was then known as Yugoslavia. When I am asked the question of my heritage, I often explain the place of my birth. Because the reality is there is no single existing nation-state that can explain the complexity of my origins. Born to Hungarian parents who themselves were born in Novi Sad, Serbia, a city located on the banks of the Danube River overlooking the Fruška Gora mountain, Novi Sad is renowned for the celebration and unification of its people's cultural and religious differences. Named the European Capital of Culture in 2021, the city epitomises the very essence of multiculturalism and inclusion. In the words of the late singer and writer, George Balašević, Novi Sad is a city where you hear 6 different churches ring in unison, where you celebrate 2 Christmases, 2 Easters, Names Day, Saints Day, where you walk along Jevrejska past the Novi Sad synagogue and hear the acoustics of a classical concert being played by an international artist, where you attend the 3-day-long celebrations of Romani neighbours and live on streets named after poets, streets that are patrolled at night by grandmothers walking arm in arm, admiring the neighbourhood roses and gossiping in 3 different languages, understanding one another completely. Named the city of love and tolerance, Novosadani, as we often like to call ourselves, are resilient people. Despite heartbreak and loss from the devastating wars in the Balkans, our humour, sense of kindness and humanity never wavered. Indeed, Novi Sad was and remains a proudly multicultural city where differences are celebrated, hatred is shunned, and standing up against injustice is second nature. I hope to carry those enduring traits with me during my time in this place. Like many before us, my parents joined the wave of economic migrants from former Yugoslavia and made their way to Australia. I still vividly recall the night we embarked on our voyage. The tears and sadness on my grandmother's face remains etched in my memory to this day. Little did I know how far Australia was and the impact that distance and not seeing my family would have on me. But my parents made those sacrifices for my future, and to them I am eternally grateful. In some parts of the world, including the Balkans where I come from, politics doesn't always serve its true and intended purpose. Indeed, sometimes it's politics that causes the destruction and devastation of its people. Seeing the impacts war has on civilians was made very clear to me at a very young age, particularly when I visited Serbia, then Yugoslavia, in 1993, 1996, 1998 and 99, just prior to the devastating NATO bombings. In 1993, as a 12-year-old from Australia, the stark contrast of the two worlds I belonged to was ever present. Former Yugoslavia was in disarray. The war was impacting everyone on all sides. Even though Novi Sad was relatively safe, you could feel the tension erupting around us. It was during this time Novi Sad became a safe haven for civilians desperately fleeing war zones from across the Balkans and searching for safety. As a child, I watched the desperation on faces of refugees who fled from the destruction in other regions of former Yugoslavia and witnessed people from my city, once a magical city, begging for food and basic needs. I stand here today and consider myself one of the lucky ones. Lucky because I was fortunate enough to have the security and safety of Australia to go back to. This was not easy for my family, who watched the years of devastation in my homeland unfold from the safety of our lounge room, not knowing whether our family would be safe. It was during this time, more so than ever, I realised the importance of good government. Governments who work in the interest of their people to protect them and to properly fulfil their obligations. As a child, I was encouraged to speak out against injustices and inequality, to be part of the conversation, to think critically of the politics of the time and how it could be improved. My parents always talked about the effects of politics on everyday people and to stand up for what we believed in. The principles of social justice, equality, education, an accessible healthcare system and a fair go are the values that my parents taught me and the values that led me to join the Labor Party. In our household, politics was discussed at the kitchen table, in front of the TV, at family dinners, and even when guests came over. That old saying, never discuss religion and politics, had never been uttered in our household. Mum encouraged my younger sister Rebecca Marton and I to have our own voice and our own views on every issue imaginable, though perhaps, in hindsight, and now with two girls of my own, I suspect this was not appreciated as much when our voices and arguments were in fierce disagreement with hers. SBS Nightly News was our Bible, second to Sundays watching SBS football with my father. Football was and still is my father's language. The soundtrack of my youth was none other than the dulcet tones of Mr. Football himself, the late Les Murray and the late Johnny Warren. Growing up, I was a little different to the other kids at school. English was my third language, after Hungarian and Serbian. We spoke our languages in the home. We listened to music from the old country, cooked traditional foods in our kitchens, a place where nobody ever left Hungary, and added an ethnic element to nearly every Australian tradition we were introduced to. For my family, this was our way of staying connected to our culture, our heritage, and our identity. My family and I made Perth our new home. It wasn't difficult to fall in love with this beautiful state and its people. The climate, laid-back lifestyle, beautiful beaches, incredible nature and friendly people made settling here much easier than we anticipated. Perth is my home. It's where I've chosen to raise my family. I'm fortunate that the city of my birthplace and the city I now call home share in common with each other the beauty that is multiculturalism. Both Perth and Novi Sad have taught me that multiculturalism works, that it should be protected, that the onus is on every one of us to call out injustice, to reflect on our own internalised prejudices, and to welcome all those who come to our shores, either by boat or by plane, some by choice and some because they have no other. What is clear is that no migrant embarks on such an uncertain journey to reach our shores without making incredible sacrifices. My story is not unique, and is certainly not a unique story in this House or in our community. I am proud that in this Parliament in particular, this story is shared by so many members who have come from all walks of life and made this beautiful city of ours, in this beautiful state, our home. Now, more than ever, Parliament reflects the diversity of our community, its richness in culture, lived experience, and the collective aspiration to commit to something bigger than our individual selves, to leave a legacy that changes the lives of those around us. Indeed, while my story in this country began some time ago, it has not been one shared unanimously in our community. For those who came to Australia when migration first began, or more recently, this accommodation wasn't always felt. Some did not feel like they belonged. There are some, perhaps, even in this chamber, who, no matter how long they have been here, how pure their Australian accent is, or their place of birth on their passport, faced racism, both overt and covert, hidden or rationalised, with an explanation that our society is too willing to accept. It is incumbent upon us to change this. Painfully, kindness is most absent towards our First Nations people, whose land we have the privilege to walk on, whose voices have been missing in our conversations about the future of this state for so long. We are still trying to play catch-up despite being their guests in this beautiful country. We must not ignore the past trauma and dislocation that First Nations people experienced. We need to do better in recognising the ongoing effects of this trauma. This week marks National Reconciliation Week. This year's theme, More Than a Word, Reconciliation Takes Action, urges the movement towards braver and more impactful change, and we all have a responsibility, individually and collectively, to ensure our path to reconciliation is more than just hollow words. Many from my community settled in the South Metropolitan region long before my family's arrival, in areas such as Spearwood. Spearwood is the kind of place I've always felt right at home. Seeing tomatoes growing on nature strips, lion statues on balustrade balconies, the never-ending procession of arches, columns and marble on brick veneer homes, the kind of homes where it's safe to say Jim's mowing has never stepped foot on. More precisely, homes that encompass concrete as far as the eye can see. After all, Australia would not have the love affair with concrete it has now were it not for us migrants. What is clear is that here in Australia, migrants and migrant communities have had a lasting impact and helped shape our community into the diverse place it is today. More than 1/3 of Western Australia's population was born overseas. For many migrants in the South Metropolitan region, their first glimpse of Australia was from the shores just off the Fremantle passenger terminal, where hundreds of thousands of migrants disembarked and began their new life in the 1960s and 70s following the post-World War II migration. This is a story that is shared by many living in the Southwest Corridor. Almost 20 years ago, I decided to build my first home and raise my family in the southern suburb of Atwell. This was a time when traffic lights were still positioned on the Kwinana Freeway, new estates were yet to be developed, before the major infrastructure projects at Cockburn Central Gateway Shopping Centre, before the delivery from the previous Labor government of the Perth to Mandurah rail line, and thank you, Minister McTiernan. And certainly long before the arrival of the very contentious Cockburn Station Tower of Faces. As some of you are aware, the 2021 state election was not my first rodeo in running for Parliament. In 2013, I gave it my first go and ran for the seat of Jandakot, where we campaigned heavily for the needs of the people in our community. Crucial to those needs was infrastructure, which had been neglected by the then Liberal National Government. The new establishment in the east of the South Metropolitan electorate appealed to young working families who were moving into the area because they offered more affordable housing for first home buyers. However, the Barnett government made it clear it had no plans on how it would support this expanding population, and no plans to make sure that councils in these areas could deal with the increase in volume and pressure points of physically having more people move into the South Metro corridor. Whether it's roads, infrastructure, building new schools, ensuring planning laws are sustainable for the future, or that local emergency services are funded to deliver services that are needed. This is what good governments do. They prepare the state for the future. Since 2017, our pocket of the world has changed dramatically with the election of the McGowan government, who are delivering on their commitment to ensure infrastructure and community services continue to keep pace by delivering on commitments such as the widening of the freeway, building the Armidale-North Lake Road Bridge, developing the Armidale Road dual carriageway and creating the first east-west metro link from Cockburn Central to Thornley. These projects, like Metronet, make the lives of Western Australians easier each day, whilst creating more jobs for our community. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the tireless campaigning of local members of Parliament, advocating for their community. I want to personally give my thanks to the former member for Cockburn, Mr Fran Logan, member for Jandakot, Yasma Barakai, member for Southern River, Terry Healy, and member for South Metro, the Honourable Sue Ellery, who have tirelessly advocated for our region. I also want to thank Minister Rita Saffioti, who had the grit and determination to fix and deliver what her predecessors couldn't fathom. Local issues have always been important to me. That's why I became involved in the campaign to protect the Belia wetlands in 2012. This area of Western Australia has been used by traditional owners for thousands of years and holds great social, biological and cultural value to the area and its people. Bibra Lake is one of the most important recreational sites in the South Metropolitan region, with some of the most biodiverse areas in our state. I am pleased to see the McGowan Labor government reintroduce important legislation to rezone the wetlands as parks and recreation reserve. This important legislation will permanently safeguard the area from future development and preserve the wetlands for generations to come. It was during this time, living in the Southwest Corridor, that I became active in the Labor movement. After completing my BA in History and Politics at Edith Cowan University and working 6 years in retail at Maya Morley and Maya Garden City, I went in search of an opportunity to get actively involved. As a proud member of the Labor Party, but with not much to go on, I decided to cold call a number on a fridge magnet, calling the office of none other than the Honourable Ljiljana Ravlic, To my surprise, I was advised that there was in fact an internship called the Labor Movement Work Experience Program run by Senator Chris Evans and that I should apply. To my disappointment, I was then advised that registrations had closed only days before my call. I thanked Lil's office for their help and then thought, you know what, I'm going to try and apply anyway, and so I did. I picked up the phone and called the office of Senator Chris Evans. Now, I don't recall exactly what I said, but what I do know is that my pleading worked. I was told by a young man over the phone, Hayden Falconer, to bring in my resume. Well, thanks to him, I made it through. I can honestly say the work experience program was life-changing. Thanks to people like Chris Evans, Hayden, the late Tony Cook who interviewed me, and everyone who has supported and continues to support the internship within the movement, I say thank you. You make it possible for us, ordinary working people, to have a chance to be part of this movement and to one day sit in this House. As a result of the Labor Movement Work Experience program, I went on to work for various state and federal members of parliament, beginning with my first political job in 2008 with then Premier Alan Carpenter. 2008 may feel like a lifetime ago, but those years were some of the most important for me personally. It was during those early years when I was raising my firstborn, struggling to keep up with the demands of a toddler, household and life in general, that I began working for a member of this House who taught me that sometimes it's okay not to be okay, that it is normal not to have it all together and not to be too harsh on yourself. That person is thankfully still here in this chamber. I am honoured to be a member in the upper house and sit alongside someone I consider to be one of my mentors, the Honourable Sue Ellery. Thank you, Sue. The 2013 election is not one I often like to look back on. For those of us who worked on the campaign, we still bear the scars. However, those campaigns are what made us tough. Lessons were learned during those years, including lessons on how to get up, dust ourselves off, keep going, and never give up. Another movement that never gives up and that I had the privilege to work for was the union movement. I want to thank the United Workers Union and Unions WA for the incredible opportunity to be part of the trade union movement. I am proud to call myself a trade unionist, and I am privileged to have worked alongside people who have spent their whole lives advocating for workers, ever evolving, even as the definition of workplaces continues to change, as does the face of trade unionism. To my comrades in the union movement, who have been some of my greatest mentors, Carolyn Smith, Dom Rose, Steve McCartney and Pearl Lim, thank you for your support. Keep fighting the good fight. More recently, I had the opportunity to be part of a close-knit, high-functioning team at WA Labor that ensured the party did something the Liberals have forgotten to do in the last couple of years: talk to people. I'm proud to be part of a Labor team that speaks to everyone in the community, no matter their position or background. Our commitment, Mark McGowan's commitment, to listen to the whole community has made this government an inclusive, thoughtful, and if you'll forgive the modesty, popular government, one that I feel a deep sense of honour to now be a part of. The South Metropolitan Region is a vibrant and distinctive part of our state, showcasing the best the West has to offer, and even includes our very own WA icon, Tony Gallardi. Whether you're spending the day on Rottnest Island, enjoying a long mac on the cafe strip in Fremantle, strolling along the Swan River in South Perth, having a swim at South Beach or Coogee, watching the planes fly over Jandakot Airport, enjoying a play at Bibra Lake Regional Playground, picnicking along the wetlands, testing your fear limits at Adventure World, or simply enjoying local fish and chips on the foreshore of Rockingham. The South Metropolitan Region truly is the best place to live. I feel this is my time to give back to this great state that has afforded me so many opportunities. During my time in public office, I will endeavour to work hard to make the interests of the people in this region my priority and be a strong voice for them in the West Australian Parliament. I promise to stand up for our community and continue the great work led by the McGowan Labor government. I want all women in our community to look at this chamber and see themselves represented. Our almost equal caucus of female members is a step in the right direction, and I'm proud to see these changes led by a government that genuinely believes in its importance and understands that equal representation can transform society and politics itself. After all, this isn't a women's issue. Including women in politics and addressing gender inequality makes for better societies and better governments. Our community, our economy, our democracy benefit from us working together to close the gender pay gap. President, we have achieved so much over the last 100 years since WA's very own Edith Cowan took her first steps in Parliament. But our work here is not yet done. While women make up 50% of our population, they are still underrepresented in many areas of leadership, including politics, board roles and senior executive positions. The truth is, they are often underrepresented in these places, such as where I stand today, because we have not adapted our workplaces to encourage women to take that leap. I hope to see continued policies which improve this issue of women's participation in our workforce. I am proud of the McGowan government's track record in this space, with initiatives and programs such as Onboard WA and the Aboriginal Ranger program, which employs over 300 people, 53% of whom are women. Policies that support training and apprenticeships for women in male-dominated industries, such as shipbuilding at Austell Henderson facility in the South Metro electorate, and the McGowan government's commitment to a statewide STEM strategy encouraging STEM education for women and girls. The historic 2021 election result was something I am certain will remain in the hearts and minds of all party faithful. It could not have been achieved without the dedicated and hard-working team at WA Labor. I want to acknowledge State Secretary Tim Picton and Assistant State Secretary Ellie Whittaker for their captainship of the 2021 state election and their support of me, not only during the campaign but during my time at WA Labor. I would also like to acknowledge the previous State Secretaries I worked with during my time at the Labor Business Roundtable. Both Matt Dixon and the person who had faith in me and my abilities when he offered me the position back in 2017, the federal member for Perth, Patrick Gorman. Now, to the engine of WA Labor, my colleagues at party office, who deserve so much credit for their endless commitment to our party. I am honoured to have worked alongside you all. It's been a ride. I would like to make special mention to a few colleagues I've worked very closely with over the last 4 years and more recently. Julie Bogle, David Can, Jessie Desmond and Daniela Pusharic. There are so many people I've had the privilege to work with during my 13 years in the Labor movement. I would like to acknowledge those I often reach out to for advice, guidance, direction and support. They have been instrumental to me on my journey. People like Mark Reid, who's always there to tell me like it is. Remind me not to be too harsh on myself and to keep striving. Thank you for continuing your wisdom after all these years. The member for Jandakot, Yasma Barakai. The member for Scarborough, Stuart Albury. And long-time friend Olivia Crowley and former WA Labor Assistant State Secretary Linda O'Shalem. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Premier, the Honourable Mark McGowan. I met the Premier at the very start of my journey. and it's an absolute honour that I stand here today as a member of the McGowan Labor government team. I want to thank him for always supporting me and for the friendship over the years. Thank you to the Serbian communities of Western Australia for supporting me and my nomination to run for Parliament. To the women in my personal life who are here today, some of which I have known for over 30 years. Truly amazing women. Thank you for your friendship and support. I would like to acknowledge my extended family here in Perth. Some of them are here today, though my family members in Melbourne and many who are far away in Serbia will always be in my heart. Hon Andric, thank you for being a great dad to our beautiful girls. My parents, Klara and Istvan Marton, your support means the world to me. Thank you for everything. I could not have done this without you. To my little sister, Rebecca Marton, who is here today, having a younger sister is like having a best friend you can't get rid of, especially when they follow you into politics. But having a little sister means that whatever you do, they'll still be there. No matter the problem, you'll never have to solve it alone. Rebecca, thank you for always supporting me. I hope one day you follow me again, but this time into one of these chambers. To my beautiful and strong daughters, Angela and Alexandra, you are both the light of my life, my strength and my world. I am so lucky to be your mother. Thank you for cheering me on, for understanding and supporting me. I hope you know that I do this for the both of you, and I hope I make you both proud. As I mentioned, English is not my first language, so I'd like to say a few words in the order of the languages I was taught. Nagyon szépen köszönöm, kezdődjön a munka. Hvala puno svima, neka posao započne. Thank you very much. Let the work begin.
Thank you and congratulations on your honourable member, and I wish you all the very best during your term in this chamber.